The old oak bar felt cool and solid beneath my hands. It was the only thing in my penthouse that felt truly grounded, a silent witness to 3 decades of my life. I measured the rye, the sweet vermouth, and added a dash of bitters, the ice chiming softly in the mixing glass. A Manhattan. It was the kind of drink a man Marcus's age mistakes for sophistication. He was 30 years old, but still drank like a man trying to impress someone. The maraschino cherry blood red dropped into the chilled coupe glass with a quiet finality. Across the room, my wife Eleanor turned a page in her book. The sound was brittle in the heavy silence. She was pretending to read, but I could see the tension in the set of her shoulders. She already knew. We had discussed it, or rather I had informed her, and she had absorbed the news with the same weary resignation she absorbed everything these days. I slid the cocktail across the polished wood to Marcus. For myself, I poured a glass of still water. At 62 years old, I had finally learned what late nights and hard liquor do to a man's clarity. I needed my clarity now more than ever. Simone, my daughter-in-law, sat beside Marcus, a small leather notebook open on her lap. She was always taking notes, always documenting, always positioning. "I'm selling the company," I said. The words landed on the Persian rug and just lay there, absorbing the light. Marcus, who had been reaching for his drink, froze. "You can't be serious." His voice was not a question. It was an accusation sharp enough to nick the air. Simone's pen began to move. She looked up, her expression, a careful mask of supportive concern. "Walter, that's monumental. You've built such a legacy at Dubois Consulting." Legacy. A word people use when they want something from you. I took a sip of my water. It was flat and tasteless and perfect. "The papers are being drawn up. It's a clean sale. Apex Global is the buyer." Marcus stood up so fast his chair nearly toppled. "Without even talking to me, what about my position? What about my future?" "We are talking now, Marcus." Eleanor let out a long, slow breath. It was a sound I knew well. It was the sound of decades of sacrifice, of dinners eaten alone, of vacations postponed and then forgotten. She did not look up from her book. I looked at my son, his face flushed with anger and entitlement. "The sale is final. It's done." I had built an empire from nothing, from 2 rented desks and a phone I paid for with a second mortgage. I had sacrificed my youth and perhaps my family for it. And now I was just tired. The deep, bone-weary tired that no amount of sleep could fix. Selling was not a defeat. It was an escape. It was the first selfish thing I had done in 30 years, and it felt like breathing. "What about my position?" Marcus repeated, his voice rising, breaking the expensive quiet of the room. "What about the last 8 years I've given you?" I looked at my son. He had my height, but not my posture. "You will be given a generous severance, Marcus. More than generous. You are smart enough. It is long past time for you to stand on your own 2 feet. My disappointment was a cold, familiar stone in my gut. He hadn't given me 8 years. I had given him a vice president title he had not earned. I thought putting him in the fire would forge him. Instead, it had just made him comfortable and expectant. I remembered all the private projects he had started with my money, the fintech app that vaporized $50,000, the boutique consulting firm that lasted 2 quarters. He had the ambition for the lifestyle, but not the grit for the work. He always expected the outcome to be handed to him, a reward for just showing up. Simone put a perfectly manicured hand on his arm. "Darling, let your father finish. He knows what he's doing." Her pen, however, never stopped. It raced across the page, a tiny, avid spider. I saw her glance at the bar, calculating. "The deal is clean," I continued, ignoring her false piece. "No debt carryover. Apex Global is a serious entity. Their chief executive officer, Victor Chen, is a professional. He understands the value and he is paying for it. $43 million. Simone's pen stopped dead. Then it started again, underlining something. From her chair, Eleanor spoke, her voice not loud but heavy enough to stop everyone. "Walter, we talked about this. You keep obsessing over the company. What about our family? What about us?" It was the same conversation we had been having for 30 years. Her timing, as always, was perfect in its imperfection. "Just a little longer, honey," I said, my voice softer but no less dismissive. "This is important. We are settling the final details." Eleanor did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She simply looked at me, and in her eyes I saw the ghost of the woman I had married, The one who used to believe my promises of just a little longer. She shook her head, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement, and turned her attention back to the pages of her book. The battle was over. The war had been lost years ago. Marcus tried a different tactic, one that sounded dangerously close to pleading. "You are only 62 years old, Dad. You could run this company for another 10 years. Easily." I looked at him, the ice in my water glass having long since melted. "I could, Marcus, but I do not want to." The distinction was everything. He saw 62 as a number. I felt it. I felt it in my left knee when the air pressure dropped, a dull throb that forecasted the weather better than the news. I felt it in my right shoulder, a constant grinding reminder of 30 years hunched over projections and late-night crisis calls. But the physical wear was nothing compared to the mental erosion. The constant humming pressure of being the final word, the chief strategist, the man responsible for every single payroll, every success, and every failure. I was tired of being the engine. I wanted for once to just be a passenger. I walked over to the highboy cabinet against the wall. From a lacquered drawer, I retrieved a small, heavy box. Inside, on a bed of dark velvet, rested a gold watch, the one I had purchased the month Dubois Consulting cleared its first $1 million in net profit 20 years ago. I had never worn it. It always felt too much like an end, a trophy for a game I was still playing. Now I picked it up. The weight was cool and substantial in my palm. I fastened the alligator strap around my wrist. The small, precise click of the buckle sounded abnormally loud in the room. It was a private ceremony. The game was finished. I turned back the watch, feeling foreign and heavy on my skin. Tomorrow I meet with Victor Chen to finalize the transition schedule. After that, we will have a proper celebration. Simone, who had been observing the watch with a sharp, appreciative gleam, immediately brightened. "That is a wonderful idea, Walter. We should go to Parkview Terrace. The view is perfect for celebrating a legacy." She always picked the most expensive place, the one designed to be seen. Parkview Terrace it is. I agreed, already feeling the weariness return. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Later that night, the penthouse was silent. I sat alone in my home office, the final term sheets spread across my desk. They were just paper and ink, but they represented my entire adult life, reduced to clauses and dollar amounts. My gaze drifted from the numbers to a framed photo on the credenza. Eleanor, 30 years younger, smiling into the camera in our first cramped apartment, the one that always smelled like coffee and ambition. She had been there. She had packed the first shipping orders herself. She had balanced the books on our tiny kitchen table while I was out chasing clients who didn't believe in me yet. A sharp, unfamiliar pang of guilt twisted in my chest. In the chaos and excitement of this final massive deal, I had done it again. I had pushed her to the margins, treating her as another item on a checklist to be managed. I had been so focused on securing my freedom that I had forgotten to ask if she still felt like a prisoner. I picked up my phone and called her, even though she was just down the hall in our bedroom. She answered on the third ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Walter, I'm sorry." I said the words feeling rusty. "I'm almost done with these papers. This whole thing, it's almost over, Ellie." A pause. "You always say that, Walter. There is always one more thing. This is the last thing. I promised as much to myself as to her. After this, it's just us. I promise." "I'll believe that when I see it," she replied, but her voice was softer. "Get some sleep. You have a big day tomorrow." The line clicked. I was alone again with the documents, the weight of her skepticism heavier than all $43 million. The 40th floor boardroom at Dubois Consulting was designed to intimidate. Glass walls overlooked the city, a sprawling map of my accomplishments. Victor Chen did not even glance at the view. He walked in exactly on time, not a second before or after his suit, a nondescript, expensive gray. He was all efficiency and sharp angles, a man who clearly measured his life in profitable quarters. His handshake was firm, dry, and brief. It was not a greeting. It was a data exchange. "Mr. Dubois, thank you for your time." "Mr. Chen, welcome." We sat. No small talk about the weather, no false praise for the company I had built. I respected him for that immediately. He opened his portfolio and slid a single summary sheet across the mahogany table. "My team's final due diligence is complete," he said, his voice as flat and polished as the table. "Apex Global stands by its offer, $43 million, all cash, closing in 30 days. He paused, his eyes locked on mine. He was not asking. He was stating a fact. "That is a fair number," I said. He nodded, accepting my acceptance. "Good. My primary concern now is the transition of your top-tier clients, specifically the aerospace contracts. Your personal relationship with them is a significant part of the valuation. I will need a 2-month handover personally managed by you." "That is already in the terms, Mr. Chen. You will have it." "Excellent." He produced a pen and the initial agreement letters. We signed. The scratch of pen on heavy bond paper was the only sound. It was done. 30 years signed away in under 5 minutes. An assistant who I hadn't even seen enter appeared with a bottle of champagne and 2 flutes. Victor Chen poured the bubbles, rising aggressively. We raised our glasses. "To a smooth transition, Mr. Dubois. To the future, Mr. Chen." We drank. The champagne was expensive and cold. I took a polite sip, but the liquid I tasted was pure, unadulterated relief. The mountain I had been carrying on my shoulders for my entire adult life had finally begun to crumble. After Victor Chen left, I stood at the glass wall for a long time. The city sprawled below a complex circuit board of lights and traffic, a machine I no longer had to operate. The relief was so profound it was almost a physical sensation, like setting down a heavy suitcase I had been carrying for 30 years. To just let go, to not be in control. The idea was terrifying and absolutely intoxicating. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over Marcus's name. I typed a simple message. "It's done. See you both tonight for the celebration." The reply came back almost instantly, less than 10 seconds. "Proud of you, Dad." I stared at the 3 words. Proud of me. It was the right thing to say. It was the perfect supportive son's response. But the speed of it felt hollow, an automated reply. It lacked the complicated, messy static of real emotion. It felt like something Simone had coached him to say. I locked the phone, pushing the cold analysis away. I was overthinking. I was still wired for threats, still looking for the hidden clause in the contract. Tonight was not for analysis. Tonight was for champagne at Parkview Terrace. I would take the win. I would choose to believe him. But that optimism was a thin coat of paint over a rotten structure. That text message from Marcus felt like a performance because I knew better than anyone how close the entire deal had come to collapsing. My meeting with Victor Chen had not been the first conversation. The real defining moment had happened 3 days prior during the final hours of due diligence. My private line had buzzed. It was Chen. His voice was not accusatory. It was as flat and cold as surgical steel. "Mr. Dubois, a small anomaly has appeared in our audit. I hope you can provide clarity." "I will certainly try," I said, my grip tightening on the receiver. "We have found a series of small unauthorized credit lines, very minor, tied to your peripheral vendor accounts. They total just under $90,000. They are all co-signed by a Charles Dubois. This name was not on your executive roster." The blood in my veins turned to slush. Charles. My brother. Charles, the permanent project. The younger brother I had been saving since he was 16 years old. The $30,000 gambling marker in Atlantic City. The failed import business that cost me $60,000. The alimony payments I covered for 2 years. I had finally given him a salaried position in facilities management, a title without responsibility, a paycheck designed to keep him solvent and out of my way. And he had done this. He had not just stolen petty cash. He had leveraged the good name of Dubois Consulting, my name, to secure personal loans. He had risked the entire $43 million sale, my entire future, for $90,000. The betrayal was absolute, a knife not in the back, but straight through the chest. I hung up with Chen, promising to handle the administrative error immediately. I summoned Charles to my office, not my home. This was not family. This was a threat to the business. He sauntered in, smelling faintly of expensive cologne, wearing a suit I had paid for. "Walt, what's the fire?" I was about to head to lunch. "Apex found the loans, Charles." The color drained from his face. He tried to bluff, but he was a terrible poker player. "That's just paperwork, Walt. A simple bridge loan for a new vendor project. You know how business is." "There is no new vendor project," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "I know that you used my company's credit rating to secure personal financing. You risked this entire sale. For what? Another bad investment. Another woman." He finally broke. The false confidence collapsed, replaced by the whining, panicked boy I had always known. You don't understand. I had a sure thing. I was going to pay it all back before the audit closed. You have millions. What is $100,000 to you? It is everything when it is not yours, I said. It is my life's work. It is my freedom. And you put a match to it. I stood up. You have until noon tomorrow. You will liquidate whatever assets you have. You will close those lines of credit. If my deal with Chen pauses for 1 second because of you, Charles, I swear to God I will not save you again. I will let you drown. He had fixed it barely selling a car and liquidating a stock portfolio I had gifted him. He had made the deadline, but the relationship was vaporized. The trust was gone. It was just one more crack in the foundation of my family. One more person with their hand out ready to take what I had built. That was the pressure I carried. That was the truth behind my peaceful moment at the window. I walked back into the penthouse that evening. The confrontation with Charles had left a foul, metallic taste in my mouth. It was the taste of absolute familial ingratitude. I loosened my tie, the silk feeling like a noose. The apartment was quiet, the view of the city lights just a cold, glittering distraction. Eleanor was in the living room, not reading this time, just sitting in the armchair watching the dark. She did not need the light on to see me. She had been reading me in the dark for 30 years. That bad, she said. It was not a question. Business, I said, heading for the bar. I needed a real drink tonight, not water. It was not business, Walter. Her voice was flat. Your face is different when it is just business. That is your family face, the one you get when your brother does something stupid again. I stopped the heavy crystal decanter in my hand. She was too sharp, always too sharp. Walter, I cannot take it anymore. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. It was heavier than any shout. I am so tired. For our entire marriage, I have been waiting for you. I turned. Ellie, that is not fair. It is not. She stood up, a shadow separating from the chair. It is the truth. It is always the company. It is always the next crisis. It is always your family and their endless grasping messes. Charles and his debts, Marcus and his ego. You are constantly putting out fires for everyone else. She took a step toward me. But what about me, Walter? What about our life? The one you promised me all those years ago. When do I get you? When will you ever just be here? The guilt I had felt the night before returned sharp and acidic. She was right. Honey, I am sorry, I said, putting the decanter down untouched. You are right. It was Charles. It was a problem, but I have handled it. It is done. I moved toward her, trying to close the distance. After this sale, it will be different. I swear to you, it will just be us. No more company, no more crises. She looked at me, and her eyes were just as tired as I felt. There was no belief left in them. You always say that, she whispered. You have always said that. Just one more year, Ellie. Just one more deal. Just until Marcus is settled. There is always one more thing. She stepped back as I got close. I am afraid, Walter. I am afraid that even after you sell this company, you will just find another reason not to be here. You will find another fire to fight because you do not know how to live without one. She turned and walked down the hall to our bedroom, the sound of her door clicking shut echoing in the massive, empty room. I was left alone, standing in the dark, a king in a castle of glass, crushed by the weight of my own family. Parkview Terrace was the kind of restaurant designed to make money feel comfortable. It sat 50 stories up a glass box wrapped in soft ambient lantern light that made everyone look forgiving. A jazz trio played in the far corner. The music just a sophisticated hum beneath the clinking of heavy silverware and the murmur of quiet, important conversations. The city spread out below us, a carpet of glittering, indifferent lights. It was a view I had paid for 100 times. I arrived at 8 o'clock exactly. Marcus was waiting at the hostess stand, his suit immaculate and new. He rushed forward and gave me a hug that felt enthusiastic but had no weight. It was the embrace of an actor, a gesture performed for an unseen audience. Dad, you made it. Simone followed, rising on her toes to kiss my cheek. She held the kiss a moment too long, her perfume expensive and cloying, an invasion of my space. Walter, she smiled, her eyes not looking at my face but at the new gold watch on my wrist. You look 10 years younger. The deal must agree with you." I smiled back, a polite arrangement of facial muscles. Success is the best cosmetic, Simone. It hides the fatigue. The hostess led us to the best table, the one I always requested, set against the outer glass railing. It offered the maximum view and the maximum privacy. Javier, the senior waiter, whose face I recognized and respected, approached without fanfare. He was a true professional. He knew I hated the obsequious performance of fine dining. "Mr. Dubois, a pleasure to see you," he said with a simple, respectful nod. "Javier, a bottle of the Sancerre for the table," I said. "And for me a large orange juice. No ice." Javier paused, his professionalism faltering for only a fraction of a second. He was used to me starting with a $90 glass of Scotch neat. I saw the question in his eyes. "Some nights the heart needs fortification," I said quietly, just for him. "Tonight it just needs to be clear." He understood immediately. "Of course, sir." He vanished into the rhythm of the restaurant. Javier returned, placing the Sancerre in an ice bucket and the tall glass of orange juice in front of me. The color was a bright, artificial sunrise. Marcus raised his wine glass. Simone did the same. "To Dad," Marcus said, his smile looking almost genuine, "for finally doing it right." We clinked glasses. The sound was a single clear chime. I took a sip of the juice. It was cold, acidic, and aggressively sweet. "I've been thinking," I said, setting the glass down. "We're going to travel." The word "we" surprised me as it came out. It hung in the air, an uninvited guest. I had meant me and Eleanor, but I realized I had not truly consulted her on the details, only the concept. "I want to go somewhere quiet, somewhere the trees do not have names, somewhere I am not Walter Dubois, founder of anything." Simone's little notebook was open again. Her pen was poised. "Japan," she offered, her voice bright. "They say time moves at a different speed in the old temples." "Perhaps," I said. It sounded exhausting, but I nodded. 6 weeks, maybe longer, a long time. The jazz trio finished their set with a flourish, and after a brief pause, shifted into something slow and sentimental. A waltz. Simone turned her smile on Marcus, all of its brilliance focused on him. "Dance with me, darling." Marcus, who hated dancing, looked momentarily panicked. But he stood, pulled out her chair, and led her toward the small, polished square of floor. I watched them. Marcus was stiff, his movements an awkward calculation, but he was trying, his eyes locked on his wife. A sudden, sharp memory surfaced. Marcus at 13 years old, at his first middle school dance, standing terrified against the gymnasium wall, convinced every girl was laughing at him. A pang of love so deep and so old it almost hurt, tightened my chest. He was a stranger to me in so many ways, a man I did not fully understand or trust, but he was still my son, the boy I had failed to protect from the gymnasium. My gaze drifted past them toward the railing. A man stood there. He was not a diner. He was not staff. He wore a dark conservative suit that was built for movement, not for show. He had an earpiece. His back was not to the room, and he was not admiring the view. He was watching, scanning. As I looked, his eyes met mine. There was no apology in his gaze. It was steady, professional, and assessing. He held my look for a second, then gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. He moved not directly toward my table, but in a slow, calculated arc that brought him to the planter just behind my chair. He bent slightly as if to check on a leaf, and his voice entered my ear low and discreet. "Mr. Dubois." I turned my head slightly, my heart suddenly cold. "Yes." "My name is Riley," he said, his lips barely moving. "I am with the house security team." I kept my voice just as low. "Is there a problem, Mr. Riley?" He did not look at me. He kept his eyes on the room. "Sir, I would not drink any more of your orange juice if I were you." The air in my lungs turned to ice. It was not a gasp, but a sudden cold cessation of breathing. My entire body went rigid, a complete physical paralysis that started in my chest and shot out to my fingertips. "Why?" I managed to say. The word was barely a whisper stolen by the jazz music. Riley's eyes never stopped scanning the room, but his voice was aimed directly at my ear, a low, precise instrument. "While you were watching the band, sir, the young man, your son, he approached the table from your blind side. He added something to your glass from a small vial. It had a clear cap. He palmed it very quickly." His words were calm, careful, devoid of judgment. They were the words of a professional witness, which made them 1,000 times more devastating. I looked past him out at the small dance floor. The waltz continued. Marcus had his back to me, his hand resting on the small of Simone's back as he guided her. They were a perfect picture of familial celebration moving gracefully under the soft, expensive lights. My son, the boy from the gymnasium, the man who had just... The floor of the restaurant, 50 stories up, suddenly felt like a thin sheet of glass over a black abyss. "You are absolutely certain of what you saw," I said. It was not a question. It was a demand for the final nail. "I was watching his hands, Mr. Dubois," Riley said, his voice absolute. "There is no doubt." I took a breath. In, hold, out. The air burned. Panic was a luxury I could not afford. An emotional reaction was a mistake. What I needed now, in this precise second, was a plan. "Thank you, Mr. Riley," I said, my voice suddenly as cold and level as his. "You have done your job exceptionally well. Do not call the police. Do not speak to anyone. Not yet. This is a private family matter. Is that understood?" "Understood, sir." He straightened up from the planter, a man just checking on a leaf, and melted back toward the perimeter of the room. My hands below the table were perfectly steady. I was a surgeon. I was a bomb diffuser. I was a man who had built a $43 million company from nothing, and I would not be undone by a boy who had never built anything. My eyes stayed on the dance floor. They were laughing. Simone tossed her head back. I reached into the inner breast pocket of my suit jacket, my wallet, my phone, and the small plastic prescription vial for my heart medication. A small bottle. A simple white screw-on cap. It was half full of tiny white pills. My movements were economical, hidden completely by the drape of the tablecloth. I unscrewed the cap, my thumb and forefinger working with precise, silent pressure. I tipped the pills into the palm of my left hand and slipped them into my trouser pocket. The vial was now empty. I grasped the tall, sweating glass of orange juice. It felt obscene in my hand, like a loaded weapon. I lifted it just enough to clear the table's edge and carefully, silently poured about an ounce of the bright liquid into the empty medicine vial. I screwed the cap back on. Tight. The evidence was sealed. The container designed to save my life now held the proof of the attempt to end it. I slipped it back into my breast pocket. It felt heavy as an anchor. Now the rest. The large decorative planter next to our table was full of dark, rich soil. I looked around. Javier was at a terminal. The jazz trio was starting a new song. No one was watching. An old man adjusting his chair, leaning over slightly. My hand dipped toward the planter. I poured the remaining 8 ounces of juice directly into the dirt. The soil drank it greedily, pulling the poison down, leaving no trace. No one notices an old man fussing with a plant. I placed the empty, glistening glass back on the white linen. The music faded. I heard their footsteps. Marcus pulled out Simone's chair with a flourish, his face bright with a terrible false radiance. "Finished already, Dad," he said, sliding into his own seat. He glanced at the empty glass. "You must have been thirsty." I looked at him. My son. "An old man gets thirsty watching young people dance," I said. My voice was perfectly normal. It was a small miracle, a testament to a lifetime of boardroom negotiations. "We must have dessert," Simone said, already signaling for Javier. "The creme brulee here is divine." I raised my hand, a simple, firm gesture. "No." I signaled Javier myself. "Just the check, please." "But Dad, we are celebrating," Marcus protested. "It has been a long day." I said, the truth of it landing like a ton of concrete. "The deal, the details. I am tired." When Javier brought the leather folder, I did not bother with a credit card. I placed 3 crisp $100 bills on the tray. "Thank you, Javier. The service was excellent." I stood up. Simone looked surprised. I leaned down and kissed her cheek. It was cold as marble. "Thank you for a lovely evening, Simone." Then I turned to Marcus. He stood as I did. I pulled him into an embrace. I held him. I felt the solid body, the bones and muscle of the boy I had raised. The world tilted, the glittering city lights spinning around his head. I held him for a second longer than was comfortable, letting him feel the embrace. "I love you both," I said. The words were a curse. They were a judgment. They were a statement of fact that I would never let him deny. I let him go. "You two stay. Finish the wine. Enjoy the music. I am going to walk." I turned, placed my hand on the cool brass of the terrace railing for just a second, steadying myself against the 50-story drop. Then I walked through the quiet, expensive restaurant, past the jazz trio, and did not look back. Mr. Riley was waiting near the elevator bank, his presence a quiet shadow against the marble wall. "Well handled, sir," he said, his voice low. "You saved my life, Mr. Riley," I said, meeting his steady gaze. "That is not something a man forgets. I will be in touch." I ignored the glowing down button for the elevator. I pushed open the heavy steel door to the fire stairs. I needed the burn. I needed the punishment. I descended the 50 flights of cold concrete steps. My knees ached. My shoulders screamed. The rhythmic, punishing impact of my shoes on the steel was a drumbeat. Betrayal. 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 I emerged into the cold night air, my suit damp with sweat, my mind perfectly glacially clear. I did not go home. I walked, putting distance between myself and the building. Then I pulled out my phone and called the only man I trusted. "Sam Jackson," the voice answered, gravelly and alert even at this hour. "Sam, it's Walt." My voice was ragged from the stairs. "Walt, you sound terrible. What's wrong? Is it Eleanor?" "No, Sam. I am in trouble. The deal is done. It is final. But Marcus, at dinner tonight, he tried to kill me." There was a dead cold silence on the line. I heard Sam take a single harsh breath. The old soldier, the man who had been with me in basic training 40 years ago, was online. "Damn it to hell, Walt," he growled, the anger vibrating through the phone. "Are you safe? Right now. Where are you?" "I am on the street. I am safe." He thinks I drank it. I did not. "Evidence? Did you get any?" "Yes, I have the drink. In a vial. In my pocket." "Good, good, smart." Sam said, his voice all tactics now. "Okay, listen to me. This is the new plan. First in the morning, you go to a private lab, not a hospital, a forensic lab with credentials. You tell them you need a full toxicology report and a legal chain of custody. No mistakes, Walt. Chain of custody. Second, lawyer. You call Rachel Sharma. She is a damn shark and she is loyal. She is the best. Third," Sam paused. "He tried this tonight, Walt, the day the deal finalized. This is not a crime of passion. This is about the money. He is after the 43 million. You check your accounts, all of them. Power of attorney, beneficiary designations, corporate access, everything. He might already have keys to your kingdom you forgot you gave him." "I will," I said, my mind racing. "Do you need protection?" Sam asked, his voice hard. "I can make 2 calls. I can have a team on you in 20 minutes. "Not yet," I said. "I need to secure my home first." "Thank you, Sam. I knew I could count on you." "I have your 6, Walt, always. Now go. Move." I hung up and stood on the dark sidewalk a block from my building. I called the front desk. "Concierge, this is Walter Dubois' apartment 24A. My voice was the one I used to close impossible deals. Cold, final, absolute. "I am issuing an immediate security directive. You are to remove Marcus Dubois and Simone Dubois from all access lists effective immediately. Their key fobs, their guest privileges are to be deactivated. If they attempt to enter the building, you will call building security and then you will call me. There are no exceptions. Is that understood?" The night manager, startled, stammered, "Yes, Mr. Dubois, right away." I walked the last block, entered my building, and rode the private elevator up. The penthouse was silent. It felt wrong, violated. I walked to the door and engaged the heavy 1-inch deadbolt. I slid the brass security chain into its groove. I walked to the service entrance in the kitchen and locked that deadbolt as well. Then I went to the refrigerator. I opened both doors. I began to purge. The open carton of milk, the bottle of orange juice, the leftover pasta from 2 nights ago. Every unsealed container. I threw it all into the trash compactor. A systematic cleansing. When I was done, I went into my office. I took the small medicine vial from my pocket. I placed it in the exact center of my massive, polished mahogany desk. It sat there tiny and lethal under the soft glow of my desk lamp. I went to my bar, the one where I had made Marcus his drink just last night. I poured a glass of my best single malt scotch. 2 fingers. Neat. I sat in my leather chair. I looked at the vial. I looked at the scotch. I did not drink. The betrayal from Charles was petty theft. It was the act of a weak, greedy man. This was different. This was patricide. This was cold. This was planned. My son. My own son. He had not just wanted the company. He had not just wanted the money. He had wanted me gone. He had looked at my life, my entire life, and decided it was a liability on his balance sheet. He had recorded me in the wrong column. I did not sleep. I sat in that chair until the first gray light of dawn began to dilute the darkness outside my windows. The scotch remained untouched, a monument to my control. I took a sheet of my heavy cream letterhead and a fountain pen. I wrote 3 words: lab, lawyer, locks. My mind was a cold engine finally firing on all cylinders. I went to my wall safe, hidden behind a nondescript abstract painting. I entered the combination. Inside was my passport, my birth certificate, and a thin file. The file contained travel documents and property deeds for a small, unnamed parcel of land in Wyoming, purchased under a holding company 20 years ago. My escape plan. I placed the small prescription vial containing the orange juice next to those papers. I took a photograph of the contents with my phone before closing and locking the heavy steel door. I had dozed in the chair briefly. I dreamed I was walking down a dirt road lined with aspen trees I did not recognize. The wind moved through the leaves and it sounded like applause, but it was not for me. It was just the wind. I woke up fully. It was 5:30 in the morning. I was calm. I was 62 years old, not dead. I had 43 million reasons to stay that way. At 7 o'clock on the dot, I made 2 calls. The first was to a private forensic toxicology lab Sam had recommended. The second was to Rachel Sharma. Rachel was the lawyer I trusted more than my own reflection in the mirror. She had handled my corporate contracts for 15 years and had never ever lost. By 8:30, I was at the lab. It was a sterile white facility in an anonymous office park. I handed the sealed vial to a lab technician. "This is orange juice from Parkview Terrace last night," I said. "I need a full panel, I need it rushed, and I need a perfect legally binding chain of custody document." I paid extra, a significant amount. I paid for human speed. I met the chief chemist, a serious woman with intelligent eyes. "I do not need speculation," I told her. "I need the absolute truth as fast as you can get it." I left feeling the first small spark of control returning. By 9:30, I was in Rachel Sharma's office. Her space was all glass and sky high above the noise of the street. She did not waste time with pleasantries. She just motioned to a chair. "Sam called me Walt. He said it was life or death. Start talking." Rachel listened, her face impassive, taking no notes. I laid it all out. The sale, the dinner, Mr. Riley's warning, the sample, the lab, the strange text message from Marcus after the deal, the earlier financial trouble with my brother Charles. I gave her facts. She dealt in provable, actionable facts. When I finished, she was silent for a full 10 seconds. "Good," she said finally. "You have a witness. You have a sample. You have motive. This is not a family squabble, Walter. This is a criminal conspiracy." She spun in her chair and began typing. "Today we build a legal firewall. We sever every financial tie. We change your will. We change all powers of attorney. We revoke every authorization you have ever given anyone with the last name Dubois except Eleanor. And we move the money. All of it." "The 43 million, I said. "Yes, the deal closes today. The wire transfer from Apex Global will happen by noon. It cannot sit in your personal account. Not for 1 hour." She was already dialing her private banker. "We are moving the entire sum into my firm's client trust account, immediately." She put the banker on a secure video call. Mr. Davies, a polite man in a pinstripe suit, looked at us from the screen. "Rachel, Walter, good to see you. Now, a transfer of this magnitude, $43 million, requires certain protocols, compliance, federal reporting." "We know the protocols, Davies," Rachel cut in. "This is a priority transfer. Walter is here to authorize it." "Of course," Davies said, his smile tightening. "Just one procedural matter. Walter, as per your authorization directive from..." "Let me see, yes. 1 year ago, any transaction over $5 million requires secondary verbal confirmation from your designated trusted party, Mr. Marcus Dubois." He smiled politely. "It was set up, I believe the note says, to protect against any lapse in mental faculty given your age. A smart precaution." The air left the room. Rachel's head snapped toward me. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was a second betrayal, deeper and colder than the first. The poison in the glass was crude. This was sophisticated. This was meticulous. This was Marcus positioning himself as my protector, my failsafe, while painting me as a doddering old man who might lose his mind. He had been planning this for at least a year. My anger was a white-hot, silent furnace. "Mr. Davies," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "my attorney, Ms. Sharma, is emailing you a legally executed document, effective immediately revoking that authorization and all other powers of attorney granted to Marcus Dubois. You will proceed with the transfer on my sole authority. I want a cashier's check for the full amount, today." "Walter, that directive is in place," Davies stammered. "I cannot legally bypass it without first contacting Mr. Dubois for his release." "Then you have a problem," Rachel said, her voice like ice, "because my paralegal is walking into your lobby with the revocation papers right now." Davies suddenly looked very pale. He began typing furiously. "One moment. There appears to be... Oh, we have a flag." He looked up, his professional mask crumbling. "There was an authorization request logged into the system at 7:30 this morning from an IP address matching your home penthouse, Mr. Dubois. It was a request to change the beneficiary designations on your primary accounts. My system flagged it as unusual and froze it pending review." He swallowed. "But the system, it would have sent an automatic notification of the security freeze to both you, Mr. Dubois, and to your trusted party." Marcus knew. He knew the bank had blocked him. He knew I was awake. The race had begun. "Prepare the check, Mr. Davies," I ordered. "I am on my way." Rachel was already standing, grabbing her jacket. "He knows the money hasn't moved. He knows he failed. He will get desperate. The check is right. No electronic trail. We have hours, maybe less. I am booking 2 separate safe deposit boxes at 2 different bank branches under the firm's name. You will go get that check, and you will not go home. You will not go to your office. You will bring it directly to me." I walked into the private banking suite at 10 o'clock. The branch manager, Mr. Davies, was waiting. He looked like a man who had not slept. His smile was a strained, painful thing. He was holding a single long, pale blue cashier's check. "Mr. Dubois," he said, his voice hushed. "We received Ms. Sharma's executed documents. The wire from Apex cleared." I did not sit. I took the check from his hand. I read the numbers. $43 million. The sum of my entire life. I signed the single receipt he slid across the desk. "Mr. Davies," I said, my voice low and absolute, "the revocation is not temporary. My attorney's office and myself are the only points of contact for my accounts from now on. Any deviation from this, and I will hold this branch personally liable. We are clear." "Yes, Mr. Dubois. Crystal clear," he stammered. I folded the check once and slid it into the inner pocket of my suit jacket. It lay against my chest, a thin paper shield. I turned and walked out of his office. I did not say thank you. He had not done me a favor. He had simply followed an order he could not refuse. Walking across the marble floor, I felt a cold surge of control. This was not a retreat. This was a counteroffensive. I had just captured his queen. As I stepped onto the sunlit sidewalk, my phone buzzed. A text message. The number was blocked, an anonymous string of digits, but the tactic was transparently Simone's. "Dad, Simone and I are worried. We were thinking of coming over tonight, just to talk. Make sure you are okay. Love you." I read the text. The poison of those last 2 words. The polite, gentle probing to see if their plan had worked. Were they coming to find a body, or to find out why I was still alive? They were testing the locks, testing my defenses. I let out one long, slow breath. My thumb hovered over the screen. The urge to respond, to unleash the white-hot rage and disgust was a physical thing, but I held back. To reply was to play their game, to match their rhythm. I needed my own. I would move at my own pace. I locked the phone and slid it back into my pocket. Let them wait in their own toxic silence. Over the next 2 hours I moved. Rachel had secured 2 separate safe deposit boxes at 2 different downtown branches of a bank I had never used. My movements were precise. In the first box, I placed the heart of my case, the sealed, tagged vial of orange juice which I had retrieved from the lab. I included a notarized copy of my new will and the original chain of custody report. In the second box across town, I placed the copies. A copy of the revocation of power of attorney, a copy of the bank transfer confirmation, and one other item, A small, faded color photograph of Marcus, age 6, sitting on my shoulders at the very first Dubois Consulting Company picnic. His smile was wide and missing 2 front teeth. This was not for sentiment, it was a piece of strategic evidence, a reminder of what exactly had been betrayed. People rarely betray you for money first. They betray you because of who they are and who they are afraid you are not. The manager at the second bank, seeing the transaction, offered me a security escort back to my car. I waved him off. "I am fine," I told him. "Sir, for a man of your—" I cut him off, my patience gone. "I am old, son. I am not heavy. I can carry myself." My self-reliance was the only armor I had left. Rachel's black sedan was waiting at the curb as I walked out, exactly as she said it would be. I got into the passenger seat. The car was clean and smelled of expensive leather and absolute competence. "The check," she said. It was not a question. I passed it to her. She put it into her locked briefcase on the seat between us without a glance. "Good," she said, pulling smoothly into traffic. "The lab called while you were inside. The chief chemist, Dr. Aris," she sounded concerned. "She is calling back on my secure line in 20 minutes with the preliminary findings." We drove in silence, the only sound the hum of the engine. My phone rang. A private number. Rachel tapped the speakerphone button on the console. "This is Walter Dubois." "Mr. Dubois, this is Dr. Aris from the lab." Her voice was crisp, professional, and cold. "Our preliminary screen is complete. The substance in the orange juice is a complex hostile mixture." My hand tightened on the door's armrest. "Go on, doctor." "We found a significant concentration of a short-acting benzodiazepine," she said. "In the quantity present and combined with the alcohol in the wine you mentioned, it would have induced profound sedation and respiratory depression." "He wanted to put me to sleep." I said the words hollow. "No, Mr. Dubois," Dr. Aris said, and the clinical tone hardened. "He wanted you dead." The secondary screen isolated a second agent, warfarin. The name hit me like a physical blow. "A blood thinner." "A powerful one," she confirmed. "Your intake file noted you are on standard medication for atrial fibrillation, a heart condition." "Yes," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "That specific medication and warfarin have a catastrophic interaction. It is a well-documented contraindication. The combination would have almost certainly triggered a massive bleeding event, a cerebral hemorrhage, or a major fatal stroke. Given the heavy sedation from the first drug, you would have simply appeared to fall asleep. This does not look like a prank, Mr. Dubois. It looks like a carefully designed protocol. The full quantified report will be on your lawyer's desk tonight." The call clicked off. Rachel said nothing for a long moment. Her knuckles were white on the steering wheel. She pulled the car to the side of the road. "Walter," she said, turning to me, her eyes blazing with a cold, controlled fury. "This is not an accident. We are past maybe. We are past suspicion. This is a meticulously planned attempt to murder you." She took one deep breath, the lawyer returning. "Okay, this is what happens now. First, I am drafting a letter to Victor Chen. I am informing him that you are alive, sane, and that all future communications regarding your transition obligations will come through my office as you are managing a sudden and severe family health crisis. He cannot be allowed to think you are incapacitated." "Done," I said. "Second, you are going home. You will purge your house. Everything. Food, drink, medicine, anything you put in your mouth, you will throw it out. Then you will wait for my call." She looked at me, her face a mask of iron. "I am going to the bank right now. I am depositing this check into the firm's client trust account. By 5 o'clock this afternoon, Walter, that $43 million will be invisible. It will be untouchable. It will be gone." I returned to the penthouse just after sunset. The place was no longer a home. It was a compromised asset. It was a crime scene. I walked through the silent, beautiful rooms, and the only thing I felt was a cold, surgical anger. I continued the purge. I went into the kitchen and emptied the pantry. Every box of cereal, every bag of flour, every sealed can. I dumped it all. I went to the bar and poured every bottle of expensive liquor down the drain. The smell of wasted gin and bourbon filled the air, a funeral for my old life. When I was finished, I sat at my desk. I took a new sheet of heavy cream letterhead. I wrote a new list. 1. New locks. Medico. Tomorrow. 2. Security cameras. Private. Hallway and foyer. 3. Written confirmation to concierge. Legal letterhead. As if summoned by the thought, my private line rang. The screen glowed with Marcus's name. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times, a small test of my own resolve. I picked up the receiver. "Dad?" His voice was a masterful performance of filial anxiety. "Are you home? We've been so worried. You just left. We did not know what to think." "I am home, Marcus," I said. My voice was a flat, dead thing. "Thank God." He breathed the relief so false it was almost comical. "Simone and I, we need to see you. We need to talk about this. We will be over in 20 minutes. It was not a request. It was an announcement. "No." A sharp electric silence on the line. He was not expecting resistance. "What? What do you mean, no?" "Dad, we are your family. We need to talk." "There is nothing to talk about tonight," I said. "If you wish to have a conversation, you can meet me tomorrow morning, at my lawyer's office." The silence that followed was different. It was not shock. It was cold, calculating rage. "A lawyer!" He spat the word, the performance gone. "You need a lawyer to talk to your own son. What is this, Dad?" "This is Order Marcus," I said, my voice as cold as the glass in my hand last night. "This is how it will be. 11 o'clock in the morning, Rachel Sharma's office. Be there if you want to talk." I hung up the phone. I did not give him time to respond. At 7 o'clock, an encrypted email arrived. It was the final report from Dr. Aris. It was not a summary. It was an indictment. The specific benzodiazepine, the exact concentration of warfarin. The report included a clinical section on contraindications citing my specific heart medication by its brand name. The conclusion was written in cold, sterile prose. "The combination is highly lethal, would be rapid in its effect, and indicates clear pharmacological intent." The chain of custody document was attached. It was perfect. I printed 3 copies. I drove to a bank across town and placed the original report in the first safe deposit box. With it, I placed a small USB drive. It had been delivered by messenger an hour before, a final professional courtesy from Mr. Riley at Parkview Terrace. As I was locking the heavy steel door, my phone rang. It was Rachel. "The bridge is gone," she said, skipping any greeting. "The $43 million is in the firm's trust account. It is firewalled. As of 5 minutes ago, it no longer exists in your name." A breath I had been holding for 24 hours finally escaped me. "Good," I said. "The power of attorney revocation is filed." She continued, her voice all business. "The bank is on legal notice. The next move is tomorrow at 11. But Walter, do not sleep in your apartment tonight." "Rachel, I am fine," I started. "I am having the locks changed." "I do not care," she cut in, her voice sharp as glass. "He tried to poison you. He tried to lock you out of your own money. He is desperate. A desperate man with a key is a threat. A desperate man without a key is just a man with a rock. Do not be there when he decides to throw it. Go somewhere anonymous, somewhere he cannot find you." The chill from the bank vault settled deep in my bones. She was right. The penthouse was not a fortress. It was the target. "I understand. I have a place." I drove to a part of the city I had not visited in years. The hotel was old, built of brick, and had no concierge. The lobby smelled of old polish and quiet anonymity. I paid cash for 2 nights. I checked in under the name of my first Army drill sergeant, a small, grim piece of irony. The room was simple. A bed with a stiff coverlet, a heavy desk, a telephone with a real cord. There was no smart technology, no integrated systems, nothing that could be hacked, tracked, or accessed. It was the safest I had felt all day. I sat on the edge of the hard mattress. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A new text from another blocked number. This was not a plea. This was a command. "If you want to keep this family in one piece, you will stop this stupid game. Talk to me tonight. At the house. Alone. Do not be a fool." It was pure Marcus. The staggering arrogance. The threat veiled as concern for the family, the absolute unshakable belief that I was the one being foolish. I forwarded the message to Rachel. Her reply was instant. Logged. Time-stamped. Ignored. See you at 11. I placed the phone face down. I unfastened the heavy new gold watch from my wrist. The one I had put on just yesterday, a symbol of my freedom. It felt like a handcuff. I turned it over. I had ordered an inscription when I bought it all those years ago. I had forgotten what it said until now. I read the small, elegant script, "What is built must also be earned." I had built it. Marcus felt he had earned it. The equation was fatally broken. I placed the watch face down in the nightstand drawer and closed it. I went into the small bathroom, ran the tap until the water was cold, and drank a glass. Sleep came in fractured, anxious pieces. I dreamed I was walking down an endless, sterile, white corridor. The walls were smooth and seamless with no doors. Far in the distance, I could see an exit, a bright green rectangle. It was the forest from my other dream. The trees were wild and I could hear the wind, but the corridor kept stretching. I was walking, but I was not getting any closer. I woke up before the alarm, the gray light of the city filtering through the cheap curtains. I knew what the dream meant. I was still in the hallway. I was not free yet. I made 2 calls from the hotel landline. The first was to a bonded 24-hour locksmith ordering a complete replacement of all locks and tumblers at apartment 24A to be completed by noon. The second call was to Rachel's office. I dictated a message which she would have typed on her firm's official letterhead and hand-delivered to the concierge of my building. It was a second formal legal notice reinforcing the no trespass order for Marcus and Simone Dubois. Redundancy was the only security. Before I left, I went to a hardware store. I bought a simple digital lockbox. I took a photograph of the new box. Anything important I thought should exist in 2 places. I arrived at Rachel Sharma's office at 10 o'clock sharp. The city was a distant, silent movie 40 stories below. The conference room was quiet, smelling of polished wood and expensive filtered air. I was early. She was already there, a pitcher of water and 2 glasses on the table. No coffee. We needed absolute clarity. I placed a single thin file folder in the center of the table. It was not thick, but its weight was immense. Inside, I had arranged the documents in a precise, damning order. The full quantified toxicology report from Dr. Eris, the flawless chain of custody document. A notarized statement from Mr. James Riley detailing his observations. A copy of the bank's letter confirming the revocation of the trusted party status. The confirmation of the $43 million transfer into Rachel's client trust account. And finally, the printed screenshots of the text messages from last night. The one feigning worry. And the one issuing a threat. "Will they come?" Rachel asked, her voice calm. "They will be here," I said. "They have to. They have spent the last 12 hours in a blind panic. They know the bank locked them out. They know I am not in a hospital and I am not in the morgue. They have to see my face. They have to play their last card." Rachel nodded, her expression grim. "Good. Let's be very clear about today, Walter. This is not a courtroom. I am not cross-examining anyone. We are not here to get a confession or an apology. Justice is a long, slow road. Today is about power. It is about order. It is about you looking them in the eye and establishing the new reality. You set the terms. You are the only witness that matters today. You just tell them what is. The truth is your weapon. Let them react to it." At 11 o'clock exactly, the conference room door opened. Marcus and Simone entered. They were a perfect portrait of somber, concerned elegance. His suit was dark, his tie muted. Her dress was a professional, modest gray. She was holding her small leather notebook, a prop of false sincerity. They looked like 2 people arriving to discuss the details of a will, not the perpetrators of an attempted murder. They both stopped for a fraction of a second when they saw me sitting at the head of the table, very much alive. "Rachel Sharma, my counsel," Rachel said, not standing. "Please sit. Water." They both shook their heads, their movements stiff. They sat on the opposite side of the table. Marcus began, and his performance was masterful. His voice was thick with practiced wounded concern. "Dad, what is this? We have been terrified. You just walked out of the restaurant last night. You did not answer your phone. Then we go to the apartment and the concierge tells us our keys are deactivated. They would not let us in. We thought something terrible had happened to you." I let the silence stretch. I let his lies hang in the clean air and curdle. Then I took the first document from my file. I slid it across the polished wood, the chain of custody form. "This is a legal document, Marcus." I slid the second paper. The toxicology report. This is an analysis of the orange juice I did not drink. I slid the third paper, the bank letter. This is the revocation of the trusted party status you set up 1 year ago, the one you tried to use at 7:30 yesterday morning. I leaned forward, my voice quiet, but it filled the entire room. Last night at Parkview Terrace, someone put a lethal combination of a benzodiazepine and warfarin into my drink. A combination the lab confirms that was specifically designed to interact with my heart medication and cause a fatal stroke. Simone gasped a theatrical, perfect sound. Her hand flew to her chest. Oh my God, Walter, who would do such a thing? I looked at her, my gaze flat and hard. I have a witness, Simone. I have a video. I have this analysis. It was not a random act. Her eyes darted to Marcus, then back to me, wide with a new, desperate kind of performance. Walter, we were just worried. You have been so stressed. We just wanted you to rest. It was just a mild sedative to help you sleep. That is all. There must have been a terrible mistake. I call things by their names, I said, my voice cutting her off. This was not a mistake. It was an attempt. Marcus, seeing the performance fail, shifted to his only other tactic, anger. This is insane, he snarled, sitting up. You are accusing us, your own family. I want to see this witness. I want to see this video. Rachel spoke for the first time, her voice like Arctic ice. You can see it tomorrow, Mr. Dubois, at the police precinct if you prefer. But today is much simpler. She slid a final single sheet of paper across the table. This is the new order. As of this morning, your access to the penthouse is permanently revoked. Your names are on a building-wide trespass list. Your access to all of Mr. Dubois's financial accounts, personal and corporate, is terminated. The $43 million from the sale is secured in a trust you cannot find and cannot touch. From this moment, all contact with Walter Dubois will be through this office. Any attempt to contact him directly by phone, text, or in person will be considered harassment and will be met with a restraining order. She steepled her fingers. We can of course call the police right now and hand them this file, or you can accept these terms and walk out that door. The choice is yours. Simone stared at the paper. Her notebook was forgotten. Her face was pale, the calculated mask of concern completely gone, replaced by the stark, ugly expression of financial defeat. She knew legal finality when she saw it. She looked at Marcus and gave a single sharp nod. The game was over. Marcus did not look at the paper. He stared at me. His eyes were not filled with remorse. They were filled with a new cold calculation. He was no longer looking at a father. He was looking at a problem he had failed to solve. Dad, he said, his voice low, trying one last time. You do not need to do this. We can fix this. I looked at my son, the boy from the gymnasium, the man who had tried to murder me for money. I have to do this, Marcus, I said. I am doing this because I am alive. My words hung in the air, a final judgment. Rachel stood up. This meeting is over. They stood their movements stiff. Simone gathered her purse. Marcus walked to the door, but he paused, letting Simone pass into the hall. He turned back, his body partially blocking the doorway. He looked at me, and his face was a strange, twisted mask of sincerity. He spoke in a conspiratorial whisper. Dad, you know I was always on your side. It was her idea. All of it. The final pathetic betrayal. The last cowardly knife now turned on his own wife. It was the most disgusting and the most predictable thing he could have done. I know what side you are on, Marcus, I said, my voice filled with the weariness of 62 years. Today I know exactly. His face hardened into a mask of pure reptilian hatred. He turned and was gone. The heavy door clicked shut. I let out a breath I had been holding for 2 days. Rachel sat down, the iron in her spine softening just a fraction. The firewall is up, Walter, she said. It is done. Sad. I did not take a cab. I did not go to the locksmith. I walked out of Rachel's building, past the anonymous crowds, and I just kept walking. I needed to go somewhere the trees did not have names. I needed to stand in a place that did not know me, a place that expected nothing from me. I needed to remember why I had wanted to live in the first place. I found myself in a small, old park blocks from the financial district, a place I had not been in 30 years. The trees were old, their leaves turning gold and red in the autumn light. I sat on a wooden bench. The air was cool. I watched a man throwing a ball for his dog. I watched the leaves fall. Peace. It was not a grand, dramatic feeling. It was just an absence, the absence of threat, the absence of pressure, the absence of betrayal. It was just quiet. My thoughts drifted not to Marcus but to Eleanor. I thought of her in that dark room, her voice full of a lifetime of disappointment. "You will just find another fire to fight." She was right. I had been fighting fires for so long I had forgotten what a normal day felt like in my own skin. I had sold my company to be free, and my son had almost taken that freedom before I had even tasted it. I pulled out my phone and called Sam. "It's done," I said when he answered. "Tell me," he said. I told him everything, the meeting, the evidence, Marcus's final pathetic attempt to blame Simone. Sam was quiet for a moment. "You did the right thing, Walt, the hard thing, but the right one. Sometimes you have to cut away the rotten part to save the rest of the tree. He was my son, Sam. He was," Sam said, his voice gentle but firm. "And you are still a man. You have a life left. What are you going to do with it? That money is just paper, Walt. It needs a purpose." "I do not know," I said honestly. "I have an idea," Sam said. "That parcel of land in Wyoming. What about the rest of it? What about a Dubois Community Trust? Not a monument, a foundation. Something that builds things for people who need it. A new legacy. Not one made of steel and glass, but one made of shade, of opportunity." I looked up at the old oak tree in front of me. Shade, I liked that. "A shade tree," I said half to myself. "I will think about that." I hung up the phone. I felt lighter. The 43 million was no longer a prize to be won or a burden to be defended. It was just fuel. I thought about the future. I thought about the trust. And I thought about Eleanor. I would go to her. Not with promises, not with just one more thing. I would go to her with my hands empty and just be there. On new terms. On our terms. True wealth is not measured in dollars, but in dignity and self-respect. Betrayal, especially from family, forces a painful reckoning. Setting firm boundaries is not cruel. It is necessary for survival. Rebuilding requires acknowledging hard truths and choosing to invest in relationships based on trust, not obligation or exploitation.